I'm Jonathan Colopy, an executive director with the Y of San Diego County, and this is the Y's Be Well podcast. Today, our guest is Benj Gershman. Ben, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. I go by Benj, just so you
Benj,
know. Yeah, there's even a story to that if you want me to go through that one real quick.
well,
It-
please do, Benj,
yeah,
tell
I
me.
think I think for any artist they want, to be referred as they want to be referred. And when I was 2 or 3 years old, I was in preschool and there was another Ben in the class and there was a Benji in the movie theaters, Benji the Hunted. And I returned home from this class, the story as my mom tells me, and I had been Ben up until that point. And then I wouldn't respond to Ben after that because there was another one and I wanted to be my own person. And I told her my name was now Benj. And we have no idea where that came from, but that's the story of how I've been referred to as Benj since, the earliest days, even before my memory.
I love that. That was already your creative expression. So, Benj,
Yeah.
thank you for being with us. For those of you, I'd like to introduce Benj. He is the bassist of O.A.R. And today we are going to be talking about, well, O.A.R. is of a revolution. And today we're going to be talking about the revolution that Benj is bringing through and related to mental health. So, as a bassist, Benj, I know you don't often get the microphone to be able to use your words to express yourself. But today we're going to talk about the podcast that you're doing to lend your voice as a leader related to mental health and helping to demystify and lend support to others. But if you could, tell us how you got to where we are today, where you have this platform, this celebrity, because of the incredible success that you've had in performing as part of a band, O.A.R.
So I think for me, the reason I've gotten here is about the connection with people. The band has always been about inclusion, positivity, and bringing people together for a really good experience. And our music reflects that, the lyrics reflect that, and our concert environments reflect that as well. The albums we've worked on creating, we're fortunate we've had 10 studio albums and we have 6 live albums. We started making those albums in 1996. So it's a long path for that. And musically, even before then, I was playing piano, I was playing guitar. And then my father one day brought a bass guitar to our house and said, I think you'll like this. And he was right. And I started taking lessons that week. And every week I took lessons from a guy named Earl Hooks Jr. He was an angel to me and taught me for all those years. And at the end of those years, he said, now you need to go out and do this in real life. And shortly after that, I found the guys in O.A.R. when I was the beginning of my, I think, junior year in high school. And, we just kept doing it. And we kept bringing friends to the basement. We kept bringing friends to a cafe that let us play. And that grew to us going to college together and then going on tour together. We've just been so fortunate that this community of people that has just continually grown hasn't had much drop off. Those that started with us are still coming to shows and being in touch, from our closest friends to the audience members. And it's just a real gift and blessing to get to be in this band with the same guys that, were in it all the way back then to now. So yeah, we're blessed, man.
Benj, it's a testament to something between you and your bandmates to have a record like that of 25 years, especially when you start in junior high. And
Yeah.
just the development that happens. People change, personalities are expressed. But what would you say is kind of the chemistry that makes it all work for you guys?
Well, any band that lasts that long, there's always going to be ups and downs. There's always going to be things that come up, and I think communication is a big part of it. We work at staying together. It's like a marriage. You have to work with your partners and continually evolve and grow and be your best selves. And when you're not able to be, you pick each other up and you bring each other to that place that you all need to get to together. We want to see this thing last like the Rolling Stones and that sort of thing, and be able to stay a band for our whole lives. It's a blessing. Like I'm saying, we see the impact on people. We see that it helps them through their lives. So we just want to continue it. It's really great work to get to do. And I think that, yeah, that's the key is sort of having those aligned goals and ability to communicate with each other and continually adapt as you do change through those years.
Well, you have a phenomenal history, a phenomenal foundation that is continuing to propel you forward. So
Thank you.
continued success in that way. Today we're talking about mental health, and I know for many of us, the pandemic impacted us physically and mentally. There was isolation. it was a very interesting time, transformative time in a lot of different ways. And Benj, if you would share a little bit about your experience in coming through the pandemic and how that may have impacted our conversation today.
Absolutely. When the pandemic began, I was actually on tour with the guys, and at the days preceding that tour, I got really sick with an upper respiratory infection, which there's no proof of it, but I'm pretty sure it was COVID based on some test results later that point at that, but there's nothing absolutely definitive. As that year progressed, I had a number of worsening conditions, which basically left me completely disabled. I lost the ability to walk around. I lost the ability to squeeze like a bass guitar, so I couldn't even play music. And as well, I couldn't pick up my 1-year-old child at the time, which was heartbreaking. And it took until like that was February of 2020, and it took until November of 2020 to identify an autoimmune disease that was going on. And at that point, we didn't understand what long COVID is, but we knew that I had Hashimoto's disease, which affects your thyroid gland and your hormone production for your entire body. So then my healing journey began, and I went through, basically another year and a half of physical therapy, occupational therapy, getting my drug dosage right for the hormone supplement, the thyroid hormone supplement to level out my body's hormones so I could begin functioning again. And then that turned into personal training to get strong and be able to carry myself the way I would need to perform the 2-hour sets that O.A.R is known for and loves to do. So,
Yes.
at the end of all that, I went on tour in 2022. We had a phenomenal time out on the road with a band called Dispatch. And they're old friends and wonderful people, incredible musicians. And we were making music, having a fun summer together, and things started to appear in my life that I began to recognize as sort of later to see it as PTSD. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was, even though I was in this moment, I'd worked so hard to get to. I was angry with people, and I had a lot of things that they weren't me, and I noticed I was having these mental health challenges. And in the middle of the tour, we had a travel situation where a flight got canceled late at night, and I ended up having to stay up all night basically at an airport because there was nowhere to sleep. The airport was crowded, and all my physical stuff, I have these flare-ups that come up, and it brought all these traumatic feelings back into my psyche. And I had a bit of a breakdown the next day when I was exhausted, and I realized how delicate I had become in that 2 years of purely going at my physical stuff and not addressing any of the mental health trauma that goes along with a journey like that. And so I realized at that point there was a lot of work I needed to do, and the guys in the band supported me, my family supported me, the audience members who knew about this were very supportive, and I thank all of those people because it started me on a path to take my life back, what good is your physical body if you're a mess upstairs,
Yeah.
and at that point, I really worked a long time to get through stuff. I had another really hard time in April of 23, and then that's when actually I began having therapy with an actual therapist, and that was the most impactful and helpful part of my journey. And from there, I've been on a really good upswing, and basically like at the end of last year, I realized that there's probably a lot of people going through stuff like this, and I began to process that I wanted to help people and turn my hardship into help for others. And at that point, I began formulating this idea for a podcast,
Mm.
which I ended up releasing this May 1st in line with Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm very thankful that it's already out there on all the major platforms. I've already been getting great feedback from people that they're taking in this content and personalizing it and considering the format, which is really just having conversations with people that are in the entertainment industry in order to elevate and destigmatize mental health conversations, because they're really kind of a taboo thing, I think, in our society. And it's just to me that, our total health is very important. It's not just our physical health. And that's what I realized in my own experience. And so I'm hoping to shine a light on better practices through what other people do, the things that I learn from these conversations. It's like if I can learn something in these podcasts, then hopefully those who listen will as well. So that's really, the the
Well,
shortest answer I could give you
no,
on
I
that
mean,
one.
you took us along quite a journey there, and I'm just thinking, as you started, here you are, this vibrant, successful artist, and then to lose your physicality and how that
Yeah,
affected your profession and your sense of self at a time of life where you were just, flying, continuing to fly high. And
yeah,
then you took it on and you addressed the physicality and brought your body back. And then the spirit was vulnerable, and then
yeah.
you recognize the work that needed to be done there. I wonder, Benj, what was that tipping point that you recognize? Okay, mentally, I've got some work. We all, I think we're coming to greater awareness that we all have mental health, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's challenged. And so you hit a point where you really were very challenged in that way. But what helped you to seek some support?
The people closest to me were
Mm,
the things that really tipped me off that there was something greater than I could deal with on my own. I think when I began to affect the relationships that were most important to me, I
mm,
really realized like this is not okay. I am not okay. I need to start figuring out where this is coming from and really address it. It's kind of like if you break your leg and you keep walking on it, it's going to get worse, and that's what happened. And unfortunately, I hit points where there was an absolute need, and that's also what I'm trying to address. And in this is that we don't have to get that far into it if you are preventative and you take action early. And so, like you're saying earlier, that I didn't completely get to address in my long-winded short answer, it was
mm.
really apparent during the pandemic that I was not the only one dealing with very challenging times. And
Mm.
so I think there's a lot of people who have things cooking that they don't know are on the stove. And,
Yeah.
in that sense, it's like we all can do work to improve our mental health in large and small ways. And it's really good to keep checking in with yourself. I'm releasing a podcast with a guy named Paul Rykoff. And Paul says it's really important. Just ask yourself, how am I doing? Like really, how am I doing? And if you can't honestly get there and answer that, ask someone closest to you because they will tell you.
Yeah, that's really important. I remember, I think I read an article, Benj, where you spoke of how important it is for us to support each other.
Yes.
Because as you said, if you can't answer that question honestly, transparently, authentically, ask those that are closest to you, because we may not be the best judge at that place and time because of the space that we're in. The world maybe gets a little more narrow, and we have
Yeah.
our defenses. I'll be okay, et cetera, et cetera. And so the whole idea of supporting each other in that journey towards our mental health is so critically important.
Absolutely. It's vital. And that's why we're here. In my opinion, it's one people. We're all the same and we need to be there for one another. And I mean, if you look at the world as a big community, right, it's not that hard to do that. And the Y is a great example of that. You guys bring so many different kinds of people together. And, even when I'm on tour, I go to Y's to exercise and to get myself healthier. So, part of me wanting and being able to do this with you, Jonathan, is to say thank you, because it's really important that we do connect with other people, and the Y is just a wonderful example of that.
Benj, I really appreciate that shout out for the Y, because as an organization, we're there to serve our community. And I think coming out of the pandemic, we have realized that there's more for us to offer to meet the needs of our community today, different than they were yesterday. The pandemic really created a shift in terms of a greater need for community, that sense of well-being and belonging, and that gets expressed in a lot of different ways. And as you came back to kind of supporting each other in this process as one. So
Yes.
I appreciate that you have elevated this conversation. And tell me a little bit how you call it what could be bad. And so
Yes.
that title for a podcast begs a backstory. So please.
What could be bad is the last thing that my maternal grandmother ever said to me. I went to see her in hospice when she was dealing with Lyme disease, dementia, and Alzheimer's. And I had not been able to really connect with her, not only because she wasn't really there a lot, she was there occasionally, but not a lot, but also because I didn't live where she was. So when I was told by my mother that these were Granny's last days, I went to see her, and I walked in the room and she was facing away from the door, looking out the window. And I walked over to her and I sat down in a chair next to her bed. I said, "Hi, Granny, it's Benj. I'm here. How are you doing? How are you feeling today?" And she looked over at me, totally clear, held my hand. We were in a moment together where I knew she was there. And all she said was, "What could be bad?"
Um,
And to me, it was her last teaching to me. And it was
wow.
also a submission to her fate and all of our fates. And it was also a sign of contentment, and it was a sign of acceptance. And in that, she taught me something that I've carried with me since then, which was over 20 years ago, or just about 20 years ago now. And I think about it all the time. And it's something that in this podcast, it's honoring her, but it's also saying something about what we all carry. Is that you don't always see these things, and it's not a question. It's literally what could be bad about somebody's life that you don't see. So the conversations I'm having really illuminate some of those shadows, and these people are being very brave and vulnerable and open in these conversations. And so you really see something in their lives that hopefully you can learn from and gain a new perspective on, and applying it to your own life, hopefully internalize it in a positive way.
Benj, I really admire you sharing that. That's a sacred story and teaching that
Yeah,
you offered there. So thank you for sharing that
you're
for all of us,
welcome.
because it is moving, because you never know what's going on for another person. And so if we can give grace to one another, if we can offer love and support for another, we're all on this journey of life together.
Yes, absolutely. You're so right. And I'm grateful to be able to be here to share it, because there was a while I wasn't sure if I was getting through my obstacles. And that's another thing that we should all remember is never give up.
Thank you. So I know you're shining a light on mental health, and specifically, you're also illuminating your industry. So if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I thought it was a fitting place to start, with this idea. I'd like it if what could be bad could apply to other industries in time. Maybe we can talk to teachers. Maybe we can talk to other communities like the veteran community more directly, and open up more dialogues. But the idea of starting with the entertainment is it's very close to me. It's my life. It's my experience. I have a lot of relationships within this. And what I want to do is utilize the music industry as a lens, a focal point for people to see through, because I'm not just talking to the stars and the celebrities, and there are some of those coming up later in the season, but I'm really having the initial conversations with the first guy as a cinematographer, the next guy as a producer. I'm talking to managers and I'm talking to people who are in the offices, not just the artists, not just the stars, because I think it says a lot about the world. We all have these different positions that support our industries or our lives. And without all those different people, they all, the puzzle doesn't fit together. And so I think it's about listening and learning from people more than anything. And I don't know everything about production. I don't know everything about cinematography. So it's also an opportunity for me to see how their little lane operates, and then it's just genuine learning. It's genuinely new, and so the conversations are not scripted. It's very much just an exchange.
But one of the things I read, Benj, is that when you guys are on tour, you bring in local groups to open up for you. And I know here in
Hmm.
San Diego, Voices of Our City Choir,
Yeah.
you have asked them to join you. I've had the chance to hear them. So profound, moving. Share a little bit about how you chose them.
Well, we found each other. I was introduced to Steph Johnson, the director of Voices of Our City Choir, through Peter Dyson, who owns and operates Studio West. And he thought we would hit it off, and that, we have a lot in common, and that my topic that I shared with him was fitting for her to guest on. And so he made an introduction, and she just openly said, "Come on down, check out the choir one day, and we'll talk." And that was basically how it all happened. Now, I'm very cognizant of the problem of those that are unsheltered and don't have a home to go to, and I'm fortunate that I do. And I am also trying to get out of my own comfort zone, because I think making the uncomfortable comfortable is a part of the mental health conversation. And so I'm going to learn when I interview Steph, and I'm also going to learn when I get to see how she brings all these people together to, sing at our show. And, it's really an honor because these are human beings who love music just like me. And I always take it to heart when I get to perform with anyone because it's an expression of our souls, and in that, this is going to be a special moment in our lives. And I hope that those who would maybe come out to this concert will realize that every little moment in our lives is special. Whether or not you're hugging your kid goodbye or whether you're driving down the road and you see a beautiful sunset, it's all special. And we should be really thankful for all those moments.
Yeah, it's so well said. So truly well said. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Like your podcast, Benj, my podcast, the Why Be Well, is about living a vibrant, fulfilling life, mind, body, spirit. So one of the things I always ask my guests is, what is critically important in terms of your well-being practice?
I have a new practice and it involves a few different things. And I try to do this daily, but I'm also very forgiving when I'm too exhausted from work I'm doing or something to not get up early. So here's my thing. I try to get up at 5 a.m. every day and I'm pretty good about it. I go for a walk, I stretch, I do breath work, I meditate before I'm looking at my phone, before I'm interacting with my child, before I'm making my wife breakfast and coffee every day. I try to serve other people and prepare my day to do that while I basically align myself for that.
Mm. Beautiful way to open up and greet the day. I think it's that early morning is really a sacred time. So I love
Yeah.
that practice, and I will extract some of those pieces in my own practice. Benj,
Great.
anything we haven't talked about that is meant to come forward?
I just, want people to feel better. And I think we all just need to be able to listen to each other as much as what's going on with ourselves, especially in this year that we have coming up with an election cycle. I think we've seen very divisive times and it doesn't have to be like that. And I think podcasts like yours, podcasts like mine provide a positive environment. A little like Arnold Schwarzenegger says about the Pump Club, his own community, is we need to basically create positive corners of the internet. And I think people can do that in their own lives by listening more and being more tolerant of people whose views don't agree with them. I think that will help you be more mentally healthy and be well.
The important message to be heard, and thank you for saying it. Benj, thanks for this conversation. Love and appreciate the music that you bring through. So
No,
much
thank
gratitude
you.
for that.
Thank you.
And continue to be well. And I know our paths will cross again. And for all of our guests, thank you for listening in. And until we are together again, please be well.